When I was 9 and Kix was 3, our mother passed away.
Any psychologist would tell you, I'm sure losing my mom just made me hard to deal with. My father remarried, and I'm sure no fault to my stepmother's, but she and I just didn't get along that great, and I'm sure I'm to blame. I just knew it was time for me to get out of the house, and my father, in a very loving way, just gave me that as an option. So military school looked like a good way out, and it was. When I got there, I wasn't a problem child. I mean, there were all pro screw-ups at military school, you know. I was a rank amateur.
Music was a huge deal. That's all we had at Sewanee. There was nothing to do. And of course, back in '69, when we first got there through '73, there was just incredible music going on. And because it was Sewanee, you had about 200 people from all parts of the South who were listening to other things, and it was the first time we ever heard of Johnny Winter and Leslie West and King Crimson, and you were picking up all sorts of great things, and we took it all in. I know I saw him with a pickup band there playing, and that's the first time I knew Hicks was really a musician, and he just had a natural feel for it.
Military school was really a very good experience for me. We went through hell, and we had the greatest time of our lives.
After his sophomore year, Ronnie's family moved out of El Dorado, and all of us cousins who had been together so long were suddenly split apart.
Those were good years out there. But of course, Jesse was moving again, so we had to move on. We moved to Skiatook, Oklahoma. Just about the time Ronnie was getting settled and liking Skiatook, they transferred Jesse to Port Isabel, Texas, and that's where Ronnie finished high school. Ronnie reacted very negatively to a move at that time. He was well established in school and was happy.
Every time you get to know friends, you get to know people and stuff like that, you're up and you're gone, you know, and you kind of have to take something with you. Music was always that thing. A little security blanket you pulled along with you. Still do it.
After Ronnie finished school in Port Isabel, he decided he wanted to study for the ministry. It did surprise me that he wanted to become a minister, but it pleased me at the same time.
Mother was the constant. And I think because of the way my father was, that she felt like that she had to pound us, you know, in a concentrated fashion with something positive. And to her, that was God and religion. When I left for college, I can remember my dad standing at the door shaking his head, looking at me like, what are you doing? Where are you going? You know, what a waste. I think that was my father's way of saying BS right there. You're not following your heart, your passion, you know. You're chasing something that someone else wants you to do. He did that in several occasions in very momentous episodes in my life, and he called it right every time.
Ronnie and I met at Hardin-Simmons University in Abilene. First day on campus, on our way to and from lunch, we started singing together a cappella. At that time, obviously, hymns, because we were at a Baptist university. And then we graduated some into some John Denver and some Eagles. Thought we sounded good, and that was the beginning of a group that we started. Ronnie played his bass, stood at the back of the group almost every performance with his head down.
It never occurred to me to try to sing.
Ronnie was extremely shy. Being on stage, putting himself out front was very difficult for him.
The first solo Ronnie ever sang was in a practice session. It was Danny O'Keefe's Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues. We forced him to sing it because we felt like he could do that. We didn't know how well he would do it because he nailed it better than Danny O'Keefe did on the recording. We were all amazed and stood there wondering where the heck that voice came from.
I went to military school during high school, so when I got to college, I really wasn't in any mood for fraternity life. I'd been told to do push-ups and all that for the last time.
When we went to school at Tech, it was a real country thing. I mean, everybody drove around their pickup trucks with their dogs, and everybody had guitars.
We kind of built a bar, the first bar in Ruston called Sundown West, and I was basically the house band.
He had an act where it was just him and a tuba player. But I just remember looking up there on the stage and seeing that tuba and thinking, God. But Kix is one of these people that he really has a lot of confidence. He never gives up on himself. Anybody that can get on a stage in Ruston, Louisiana with a tuba player. Yeah. And I think he gets that from Leon.
My father was always my biggest supporter. Just about every evening when I was home, we'd start cocktail hour and he'd get your guitar out, you know, let's hear what you got. He always wanted to hear me play. He always made me feel comfortable about that.
After about 2.5 years at Hardin-Simmons, I was over that religious intensity thing. So I moved across town to a larger school, which is Abilene Christian University. I didn't care one way or other what religion it was at the time. They just had a good music program over there.
Ronnie found himself playing weekend gigs in honky tonks. I think he did that on the sly until he was found out.
One day, I get called into the office by the dean at this school. He sits me down, he says, we understand that you've been playing in bands and clubs around town. I'll give you the choice. You can stay here, or you can go do that. I stood up and I walked out of his office. I left, I never went back. I felt so guilty when I left that Bible college. I felt like I was throwing in the towel. I felt like I was letting the family down. I had such a history of deep dysfunction and alcoholism. I thought that I was going to break that curse by going and becoming a minister.
Then he began playing around Tulsa in different bars and nightclubs and things.
Beer joints, you know. It's where you had to go to learn to play. You know, I thought I would be killed at first. I didn't know. You know, I'd always been taught by my mother, those places that your dad goes are bad places. They're dangerous and they're evil.
Not to get macabre, but, you know, my father died here. When he was dying, my brother and sisters, we sat in this room and I sat there and played piano until he died. We sat right here and sang hymns. When he was out of it, I know he heard us. That piece of brass on the wall was a piece of wax an artist friend of mine sent me. He said, you know, get your dad to squeeze this and you'll always have his hand shake. And I remember going in there and he hadn't talked to me for hours, you know, and I said, if you can hear me squeeze this piece of wax for me, I got it warmed up. And he grabbed it and he squeezed it real hard and I got it cast in bronze, you know, and I can still get that handshake out of him.
From watching my father all my life go after that dream and not get it and see what it did to his life and the people around him, I was afraid of it. I come home one night, the television on, my dad was sitting there. He goes, what have you been doing? I said, well, we went out and cut some demos. And he said, let me hear them. So I put them in, I play them, and he shakes his head. And he said, what are you doing? You know, he says, what are you trying to write? He says, that's not good. You know, I went, hey, okay, it's cool. But he had obviously been drinking, so he wanted to continue on with the encounter. And my mother was down the hall in the bedroom, and I think she probably overheard some of what was going on, sensed what was about to happen, and came in to get in the middle of it, intercede. I remember looking at him, pushing her to the side. I realized all of a sudden, hey, this is this guy that I have been terrified of all my life. And I said, this is it, pal. We're done with this. And I nailed him. I knocked him just across the coffee table, across the room. I remember the shock look in his face, like, what? This has never happened. This is something new on the menu. He pulls a pocket knife, you know, and I'm going, what are you doing? Pulling a knife on your kid? So I take the pocket knife away from him, and I said, I see you, I'm gone. So for 3 years, I never spoke to him.
Dad did finally straighten up, and he started going to church. He became a deacon. He played music down there, which he enjoyed doing. So he and Ronnie mended the fence.
I remember walking away from him with a positive outlook on life.
My dad said, so you're going to be a big fish in a small pond, huh? Well, yeah, I guess.
It was at the end of my rope. I got on my knees right here. I cried and I said, I have to have a son.